Hello, everybody. Okay, finally going live here on Facebook and YouTube. I've had enormous technical issues. I've had to reboot my computer. I've had to give it an update. I've had to log in incognito because my live streaming software would not recognize my camera or microphone. Oh, the joys, oh joys, oh joys of technology. I think I might be due for an upgrade on my lovely Mac. I think it's just not coping with some of the things I'm asking it to. So I know I'm incredibly late, but I really hate to break a promise, and I do promise that I come live here. And I know there are a number of you who expect that. So I imagine that some of you have probably disappeared, which is fine. I'm just going to go live and maybe some of you will catch the recording if that's what works for you. But I wanted to at least jump in here. So I am currently live. Hopefully that's working. I'm live on Facebook and YouTube. And, we are counting down the days till the end of the year. We've only got, I think, a couple of more lives between now and Christmas Day, because Christmas is in the middle of the week this year, which is interesting. So I just wanted to share a couple of things, because I know that, well, the first thing I want to say is lots of prayers out for my beautiful dog, Arlo. I've got a beautiful dog, Arlo, who's having surgery right now as we speak. We took him for a run a few days ago, and he has had grass seeds embedded in his body. It's just horrendous. So we took him to the groomer yesterday, and she found 100 embedded in his skin, and they've caused all these abscesses. So she picked those out. We've been picking them out over the last few days, but he's had to go in and have surgery because apparently grass seeds can move into the lung and chest and other areas of the body. So my poor boy's having, I don't know, I think he's going to come out covered in stitches and cuts by the end of today, the poor darling. So I felt really, the poor Annie's got an ear infection, so he's not happy, poor darling. So anyway, he's in surgery at the moment. So lots of love that all works out for him. Thank you for his stupid internet. I know we've got. I live in on the Mornington Peninsula and on a coastal town, and the population has increased, obviously, because we're getting closer to that end of the year, and it's a very busy, popular time of year, and I think that affects the speed of the internet as well. So I've had a lot of technical issues today getting online, but I'm here now. Thank you, Penny. Yes, I know. I did feel mean dropping him off. He'll come out with a big cone and lots of stitches. He had these enormous, this is my dog, he's had enormous abscesses from grass seed. Who knew? But they're quite pointy and nasty things. So I've never seen anything like it. So anyway, so obviously as I go live here every week for you guys, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have, to give you clarity around things. And, as always, you guys send questions into me, which is fantastic. And your questions are always so spot on, because there are just so many people that message me afterwards or send me emails, DMs saying, oh my goodness, Fiona, that question, I really felt like you were speaking to me and it made so much sense to me. And it was really, really so helpful. So, I really do appreciate that feedback, not because I need some reassurance, but more to know, because to me, these Friday Lives are all about being of service. So I want to make sure that I'm continuing to be of service to you. And the only way to know that is to get your feedback. So if you do hear something that's been helpful, feel free to comment on the live itself, because that helps other people find it and other people know that it's helpful, or whether that be through YouTube or Facebook, or send me an email and let me know and say, Fiona, that was really helpful, because it gives me the ability to know, because as you can imagine, these lives are a one-way street. I apart from your messages, which I can see here, which is lovely. Hi, Dan. Hello and welcome. I know that you've just recently joined. I think you have, haven't you? You've recently joined my Relatable program, which is awesome. Oh, yeah, you have. Halfway through module 1. We're all love, peace, and joy. Yeah, awesome. Yep. When you truly see that, Dan, when you have such a deep knowingness of that, your capacity to move through the world, no matter what the world throws at you, grows exponentially. Like, it is extraordinary. It truly is extraordinary. When people have a deep knowing of that we're all love, peace, and joy. When people have a deep knowingness of that, their insecurities fall away, or they start to see through them. They don't take things as personally. They're not as defensive. They don't overthink. They start to get clarity. They start to tune into their own wisdom. And all of a sudden, there's this emotional and mental bandwidth that appears. And I'm a huge advocate of that. I just see amazing things happen with my students, with my clients, with myself, when I have access to emotional and mental bandwidth, and I see it with others. And that just ripples out into the world, into places that you can't possibly imagine. So that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that, Dan. Thank you so much. And anyone else out there, if you want to say hi, let me know where you're listening from. I do realize I'm about 55 minutes late, and so many of you have completely given up, but that's okay. Like I said, at least I have, like, it's not okay that I've kept you waiting, by the way, but at least I'm here and I'm able to answer any questions. So I'm just going to pull up the questions that have come through. And generally, you know, when I'm going live each week, I'm coming live or I'm kind of talking about some of the key things that have shown up with my relatable calls or the students, or my private clients. Okay. So, and of course, these Facebook Lives are different. You know, in terms of the live Q&A I do with my students, we're all on Zoom and we're talking back and forth. You know, Facebook Lives are very much my kind of me putting stuff out there, you guys sending me a message, which I really appreciate. I really, really do. Hi, Sari. Hello. Oh my goodness, it must be very late for you, honey. If you're, it must be very late for you because you're in the UK, right? So thank you for being awake and tuning in. I really appreciate it, and for saying hi. Penny, I'm putting together a very intricate and confusing gym set, and without the relatable program, I would have lost my shit days ago. Well, see, this is it, right? Let me just say, guys, when we have a more expanded state of mind, we find we have patience for things that we never knew we had patience for before. So as Penny's just clearly stated, it's 1 a.m. Oh, my goodness, Sarah. Well, I'm so appreciative of you tuning in. I better make sure I make this worth your while, for being awake and tuning in at 1 a.m. So I'm just going to pull up the calm is amazing. I know. Can I just say, as someone who struggled with calm, I was such an explosive, reactionary person, and I thought I could never, ever truly be calm, apart from moments where I would really hold it together from a willpower state. But of course, willpower is a very limited thing. You run out of it pretty quickly. And can I just say, when you're using willpower a lot in one area, you don't have any left for anywhere else, right? And as someone who really truly thought calm was something that I just would never have access to, not consistently, it has just been amazing to me the amount of calm I have. Calm, sense of humor, playfulness. I just don't take things anywhere near as seriously as I used to, and that is just freeing. It's so freeing. So I love that, Penny. Good. I love the calm. Calm is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Okay, so coming to your questions. Here we go. Sorry, guys. You know, I've had a few people email me this week on a similar vein. So I generally, when I get a question that's of a similar vein, I'll kind of answer it in a general fashion. But you know, a lot of people have said to me or asked me this week. They've sort of said to me, you know, Fiona, you talk about things, and I had someone send me this yesterday from the UK. Actually, let me read it out. Otherwise, I'm going to be guessing. So one second, let me pull that out. It's just a little harder for me to find because I've had to log in incognito on my computer to even get the streaming software I'm using to even work. It's just been quite the journey to get here today. Okay. So let me just give me a second, guys. I've got to go into a different part of my computer. If anyone else has a question that they would like me to answer, please feel free to post it in the comments below, and I will absolutely make sure that I do that. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay. All right. Hi, Fiona. And so this is the one that came through yesterday. But like I said, I've had quite a few in the same vein. And so I thought I'll definitely answer that today because I can probably cover a few of you in one go whilst I'm answering this one question. Just to make sure everyone can still hear me okay. Okay, perfect. So the question that came through yesterday, and I'm just kind of reading this directly from this person's email. So if I look like I'm reading something, that's exactly what I'm doing. Hi, Fiona. Thank you so much for doing your Friday live Q&As. I feel such an incredible sense of calm when I listen to them. I'm really not sure why, but there's something about the way that you express things that I really notice the difference before I listen and afterwards. Okay, cool, awesome. My question is, my husband and I are a blended family, and he has 2 children from a previous relationship, and I have 2 children from a previous relationship. Neither of our children live with us full time. So we have, and what we've managed to do is make sure that when we have all the children together at the same time, and then we have this week together and this week without children and a week with children. And we really find that, the week that we don't have the children, we get along really well. Things are really calm, and he and I, we're just great. But the week that the children are there is just chaos. I feel like he's too hard on my children, and he feels like I'm prioritizing my children over his. I can't see it, and he can't see my perspective. And so what happens is, we are both finding ourselves getting very protective of the other party, and neither one is feeling like we have each other's back. And we're finding now that it takes us a few days after the children have gone back to his ex-wife and my ex-husband's for us to reconnect. How can we get past this? Or what can we do? This relationship is really, really important to me. And our children are relatively young, and so we're going to be dealing with this for many years to come. Okay, great. Now, fantastic question. And do you know that I was actually just speaking about this with a lawyer in Queensland this morning who just bought my ebook actually, but we were just talking about they specialize in family law, and we were talking about this separation rate of second marriages. So at the moment, for people, first-time marriages or first-time relationships, really, because I know a lot of people are in de facto, is sitting at around 50%. That's what the separation rate is. Second time and third time, you're looking, it jumps up to 70%. That's what the rate is at the moment. And this is just of the ones that we know of. A lot of second marriages or relationships, de facto relationships, don't even get registered. So this is the ones that we even know of. So you can see that this is an enormous issue. And I think part of the reason why second marriages, third marriages, etc., have such a high failure rate is because there's quite often a blended family scenario. Okay, you've got children, stepchildren, or maybe you're someone who doesn't have children, but you're in a relationship with someone who does. Either way, you've got that blended family situation. And, the thing that brings a relationship unstuck, really, the thing that brings a relationship unstuck is an inability to navigate each other's frailties well. Okay, when people don't know how to do this well, it destroys goodwill. It breeds a sense of distrust. And when I say distrust, I mean distrust in terms of how emotionally safe you feel. And so when people don't feel emotionally safe, they stop giving each other the benefit of the doubt. The playfulness disappears. things become very serious very quickly. We take things personally. We become defensive. Self-righteousness sets in, etc., right? And you'll find that people are in a state where they don't realize it, but they develop a high tolerance for being in a dissatisfied state of mind, and they nitpick each other. I'm working with a couple from Queensland at the moment, and I just had a session with each of them yesterday, and they said to me, and I'm working with them separately at the moment. So whenever I work with a couple, I work with them separately, and then I bring them together when I think they're ready. And they both said to me yesterday, Fiona, I've got a whole module in my Relatable program on dissatisfaction, dealing with dissatisfied thinking. And they said, I did not know, it's actually been a real shock to both of us, how much dissatisfied thinking we have about each other. And it's no wonder that we have struggled. And this is also a second marriage, how much we have struggled, and why we have felt so disconnected. I thought our level of goodwill was quite good, but I've had a bit of a reality check that it isn't as strong as I thought, and I can see why it's so important that we strengthen that, because when you don't have a strong level of goodwill as your baseline, when you don't have that, it's very difficult. It becomes harder and harder to reconnect after there has been conflict. It becomes harder and harder. It's almost like this wall develops, and each time with an argument, with conflict, with differences, we become in this state of mind, with this more, what I would call a more adversarial state of mind, where an adversarial state of mind is someone who's kind of in the mindset of, I represent me and my interests. And the other person in an adversarial state of mind is saying the same thing. Well, I represent me and my interests. So it's almost like the metaphor is you're two barristers or lawyers in a courtroom, and you're representing each other's client. And there is no joint interest there at all. So when people are in that state, the sense of feeling emotionally safe disappears. And so people just focus on themselves. They stop sharing as much. Their ability to listen disappears. They bunker down on their reality, and their capacity, their mental and emotional bandwidth falls away. Now, when you have a combination of those things, relationships can go south very, very quickly. Now, add in children, especially children that don't live with you full time, and so they're now going back to the other party's home, and those children are learning each household has its own culture, right? You'll find that each household has its own culture that they've got to adapt to. And so they're spending half the week adapting to the other culture, dealing with their rules, their style of things, and then they've got to come back in and adapt to yours. And so there's always this feeling of disruption. And when you guys aren't doing so great, can you see how this can just build and build and build to the point where giving each other the benefit of the doubt, letting things go, giving each other a free pass when you do or say something that's not so great that you didn't mean, that starts to fall through the window. And so it feels like it's you against them or them against you. And so in this state of mind, we don't feel good. And when we don't feel good, we tend to retreat to our own corner, right? We retreat to our own corner. And so connectedness falls away. And you've got to understand, when people don't feel good, and human beings are very driven by a good feeling. And what I mean by a good feeling is a sense of calm, peace, presence, lightheartedness. That's what I mean by a good feeling. I'm not talking about positive thinking. That is not what this conversation is. That's a completely different thing. Okay. But we're driven to seek that out. And so when we're not seeking that out with each other, we will go where we find that. Now, let's come back to the situation where you've got a blended family and you've now got two sets of children coming into the house. The parent is going to retreat to their own child because they feel better around their children, right? Than they do around the other party and their children. And so this starts to happen on both sides. you feel better on this, in this space, they feel better on this space. And so everybody kind of goes into, it probably sounds dramatic, but it's true, a form of survival mode. And they kind of get through by the skin of their teeth until the children go back to the other party. They've now got some space. They've now got time to, to let their mind settle. They look at each other and they're like, oh my goodness, let's do this differently. But of course, the same thing keeps happening again and again. And so what we blindly believe, what we blindly fall for is, well, if it's happening all the time, that must mean something about our relationship. And I think one of the trickiest things, and this is why one of the first things I teach in Relatable, which is the module Dan's doing, is I teach you about thought, how it works, how to navigate it. Because if you don't know that, you're going to be looking in the wrong direction for the answer. And the wrong direction is, out here. Yeah, well, when our children are together, we don't get along. So maybe that means inherently we're not meant to be together. Or maybe that means that we can't be together. Or maybe that means, do you know what I mean? We start looking out here, we do what I call all the evidence gathering, and we then decide, yep, this is hard, this is difficult, this person doesn't listen, this person doesn't have my back. And so now we're drowning in dissatisfied, insecure thinking, which doesn't really go anywhere, and it just gets flared up each time the children are back. And you're dealing with that dynamic. I'm not saying it's the children's fault at all, but it's the dynamic, okay? Now, if you don't know how to navigate your thinking well, what will happen is this will feel so painful, so hard, so difficult, so overwhelming that it will look like the only answer is to separate. And this is what I hear happens all the time. And so people get stuck in their thinking, they get stuck in their reality, they're not knowing where to look for the answer, and so they keep replaying the same thing. Innocently, inadvertently, this is what humans do. And until you have an understanding or what I would call the principles of being human, and the great thing about a principle is it's universal, applies to everybody all of the time. So it's not situational dependent, okay? This is very important. It is not situational dependent. It's like, I'm human, you're human. The only prerequisite for this is that you're a human being. It's got nothing to do with gender, age, religion, culture, none of it. And I think this is very, very important because there's a lot of confusing messaging out there about relationships, right? About personality types, communication styles, the differences between men and it's very complicated. And I promise you, it's not that complicated. When you're looking at something through the lens of a principle, it simplifies things. And simplicity is a very good thing in relationships, okay? Because we have a tendency to overcomplicate things as it is. And when we overcomplicate things, we are a lot more defensive. We are a lot more judgmental. We project our insecurities out. We erode goodwill. This is what human beings do when they're in an overthinking, complicated state of mind. But when you come back to simplicity, it's almost like all that mental load falls away. You take things less personally. You're more playful, lighthearted, understanding. And so what it means is you can get over yourself, get over the past. You can create fresh moments. And it means you can show up where you're not so loaded. People don't realize how loaded they are. Okay. And what I mean by loaded, I mean charged. People are so charged. You got to understand when you're really charged, and a charged person doesn't have to be yelling and screaming. You can be silent and be charged, very charged. Okay. That charge flavors everything. It flavors everything. And so in my mind, this is the biggest blind spot people have. They can't see their own flavor. And so without that awareness, they keep inadvertently doing the same thing over and over again and not understanding why. Is this making sense? I just want to do a bit of a check-in here. Is this making sense? Because this is a really big subject that people come to me about and ask me questions about all the time. How do we navigate our blended family? Where, we seem to do better when the kids aren't around, and we really want to make this work. And I really want to say the answer I'm giving you here is the same whether kids are involved or not. And this is the thing that people can't get their head around sometimes, okay? The answer I'm giving you is the same whether kids are around or not, because I'm teaching you, right now, I'm teaching you. These are the foundations. These are the fundamentals for dealing with conflict, letting go of the past, being able to look at something with fresh eyes and fresh thinking, the ability to feel calm, open, connected, present, listening. Can you see that a human being who does those things well, who's a great listener, who's present, who's calm, who knows how to get over themselves, who doesn't carry the past around like a big ball of emotional residue, right? They've put all that down. Can you see someone who's got those things going on? And this is, anyone is capable of accessing this, anybody, but someone who's got those things going on. They are someone who's going to be very relatable, aren't they? They are someone that you're going to feel emotionally safe around. They are someone that you are going to want to spend time with. They are someone that you're going to forgive quickly, where there won't be all of that resentment. Can you see that? Because, you know, when we put our insecurities down, when we're not leading with our frailties, when we're not doing all of that, the way we show up is unbelievably powerful. People think sometimes this is a little too simple, but I'm telling you, when you're living this, it will blow your mind as to how good you feel, the changes in you and the people around you, how much of the level of well-being you get to live in, a lot, and how much you stop feeling like, because most people feel like they are especially in a relationship that's struggling, they feel like they are the emotional puppet on the end of somebody else's string. That's how people feel. And they're just kind of, you know, it depends on the other person's mood, the other person's behavior, what another person is doing, and they feel like they're just being jerked around. And so that is incredibly difficult and frustrating for people. So I'm telling you, when you experience this for yourself, a number of things happen. Number one, you stop being so charged. Your flavor changes. And this needs to happen, okay? No matter, even if you think you're a really calm person, I'm telling you, you're going to have a flavor. Everybody has one. Everybody, okay? Even if you've done gazillions of personal development programs, which I had done, believe me. I laugh about it now, but I really thought that I was much more highly evolved than I was. Definitely. I was kidding myself there. But I think that's a bit of a trap when you've done a lot of personal development. You kind of get this, you kind of feel like you kind of know more than you do, or you're more evolved than you actually are. And so your whole flavor changes, and you actually get to show up the way you've always wanted to. That is an amazing feeling. I can't tell you, greatest things ever happened to me. And then you get to see the ripple effect, that effect of that go everywhere. So if you're a blended family, always, if you're struggling, the first place you want to start with is you. Understanding how you're showing up. What is your flavor? How quickly you get over things. Whether you've got a lot of dissatisfied thinking, whether you're just coming constantly from a place of resentment, whether you've put the past down, whether you've let go of what happened last week and you're showing up from a fresh state of mind. This is possible. People think they're showing up with a fresh state of mind, but they're really not. It's kind of like food dye. You know, if you've ever spilt a drop of food dye in something, on something, it spreads really quickly and you can scrub it out, rub it out, but you never really get rid of it, right? You never really get rid of it. There's always a faint little line of it there. I see this in people. They've got this food dye that they can't see. And so, of course, it flavors everything. And so people will come to me and say, you know, my partner's really shut down, or my partner's really explosive, or my partner's got narcissistic tendencies, or right. And I'm not going to deny there are definitely people in the world who are narcissistic. I get that, who have that, which is a mental health disorder, who have that. But it is a much lower percentage than what kind of people think out there. It's much, much, much lower. I mean, I've worked with thousands and thousands of people now over, you know, a 15-year period, and I could put on one hand the amount that I've really come across in that time. okay? So, and then I've come across people who would say that about their partner, but they've found that as they show up differently, as they let go of things, as the dissatisfaction falls away, as they're more neutral, they're not loaded, they don't have the flavor, they feel better within themselves. And so the whole energy lightens and lifts. Now, a person who's in a lighter energy is just easier to be around energetically. Remember, our energy enters the room before we do. And so when that happens, it has incredible impacts on the people around them. And then when people see that, they're like, oh, wow, I did not know how much of an impact I could have. And again, it's not to say that anything is anyone's fault, but we really don't know how powerful we are, and we don't know what we're capable of creating. And so, hey, Dan, that's my goal. Awesome. Good. It's a great goal, Dan. Great goal. Let me tell you, I honestly, this is why, and I talk about this a lot, I am so protective over my mental and emotional bandwidth. I want to make sure I've got a lot of it, because when I've got a lot of mental and emotional bandwidth, there is so much more of me available to the people I care about. So many of you give it all away at work, and you've got nothing left by the time you get home, and you think that's okay because you've worked hard all day, right? But many of you come home tired, grumpy, irritable, resentful when you walk in the door with your family, and you're probably not willing to admit that everyone at work has got the best of you and your family's kind of getting the leftover crumbs, right? I see this happening a lot. Now, throw into the mix blended families and all of that stuff going on. Can you see how everything gets exacerbated? But if you're putting in place the things that I'm talking about, you will find within yourself, because everyone has access to this, everybody does, because it's a pre-built thing, this sense of mental and emotional spaciousness inside yourself, where you handle things that you did not think you could in a completely different way. People blow their own minds all the time. Wow, Fiona, normally I'd get, I hear stories of people who are struggling with an in-law, and then go, wow, my mother-in-law has driven me crazy for 20 years, and she came over the other night, and I don't know, I wasn't triggered, not once. For the first time someone said this to me years ago as a client I was working with many, many years ago, she had a Greek mother-in-law who would come over for dinner once a month, and she would kind of nitpick about the house, the food, and kind of put her husband down, and then her husband wouldn't say anything, and then they'd have a fight after she left, and she'd be saying, why don't you stick up for, to your mum, and, she's always so rude, and she's so negative, and she's so this, and he'd be like, oh, it's just mum, don't worry about it, it doesn't matter, that's just mum, and she'd be like, Fiona, I used to be so incensed and infuriated and angry, and I used to dread her coming over, and she'd been learning this understanding, we'd been working together. We'd only had a couple of sessions. I hadn't even spoken to her about her mother-in-law. I didn't even know that was a thing. And she came to me, I'll never forget this, and she said, I don't know what you've done to me. And I said, what do you mean? She said, my mother-in-law came over for dinner on Saturday night. We've been, I don't know how many years, I think like 25 or 30 years married they'd been at that point. These people were in their late 50s, mid to late 50s. And she said, for the first time ever, I was not triggered by her. I was not bothered. I couldn't believe it. I kept waiting for the anger to come, and I'm like, it's not there. And she said, it was the very first time my husband and I did not have a big fight after she left. First time. And she said, I'm not even thinking about her. I'm just in shock that I don't have any of that. She said, I had no idea how much thinking I had that I was getting so stuck with about my mother-in-law. And she said, you're right, Fiona, when it falls away, there's just nothing there. She said, it is incredibly calming, incredibly freeing. There's nothing for me that my husband and I even talk about. I just don't have anything on it anymore. She said, I don't even understand how that happened, right? People say this stuff to me all the time. It's awesome. I love it. This is what I mean by simple, easy, and effortless relationships, right? They really can be. People don't believe me, but it's true. Hey, Deezer. Oh, thank you, darling. If you're looking to create change in your relationship, it only takes one person. You can be the change you want to see with Fiona's guidance. Everything she says is true. I live it. It is so true. That is so true. Deezer's been, is this your third year in Relatable, Deezer? I think it's your third year. Deeza's story is truly amazing. It's an amazing story, and what Deeza is now doing in the world and the change, it's phenomenal. I really need you guys to know, no matter what your situation, this is possible for you, because I'm talking about something that is just universally true. It's not situational dependent, gender dependent, person dependent, culture dependent, education dependent, religion dependent. It's just not. Okay, it's human being dependent. If you're a human being, this applies to you. It's just that simple. So I just want to finish off, because I've been talking about blended families today, but really what I'm saying, you could apply to anything and everything. What you've got to learn how to do, if you are struggling in any capacity with anything emotionally, anything really, but we're speaking about blended families, but really the answer is the same. Like what I'm talking about is not situational dependent. We are talking about the situation of blended families, but you can apply this to anything. My internet, oops, can everyone hear me? I think my internet just dropped out there for a second. Can you guys let me know if you can hear me? Like I said, there's a lot of people down where I live at the moment. There's a lot of people down where the population has doubled in the last few days because it's summer, and I think it's affecting the internet speed. Can you guys hear me? Just let me know if you can. Just post yes in the comments or something. That'd be great. Yep, all good now. Okay, perfect. So what I was saying is, we're talking about blended families, but really the answer is the same. If you're dealing with a blended family, everything starts with you. I'm not saying it's your fault, but everything starts with you. If you want to feel empowered, you have to see the truth of what I'm saying. Because every time you think the answer is out there, you lose your power. Can you see that? Every time you think the answer is out there, you lose your power. Every single time, you will notice that. Every single time. If you're waiting for someone else's behavior to change, if you're waiting for someone's attitude or opinion or tone of voice to change, every time you're out there, you lose your power. And then we get frightened and everything gets overwhelming and hard. You have to understand that everything starts with you. Not that it's your fault, but this is a good thing. This is the most wonderful, wonderful thing to know, because you have way more choice than you could ever possibly imagine. Your reality is not situational dependent. The day that you know that to the depth of your being is the day that your level of resilience will go through the roof, your ability to access calm, your ability to navigate difficult, challenging situations, your ability to navigate your own emotions, your ability to realize that your personality is not as locked in as you think. I tell you, it's the greatest thing that can ever happen to you. You have to understand it starts with you. And I really, my deepest wish for humanity is that people can see that they are so much more powerful than they understand, that they have this capacity way, way bigger than they have any idea of, to facilitate connection, love, change, ripple effects in the world. Everybody has access to this. Irrespective of, this has got nothing to do with education. This has nothing to do with emotional intelligence. This has nothing to do with the things that you think it does, right? It's just layers of understanding, okay? The more deeply you understand this, the more you then show up in a way where you're focusing on what you're creating rather than focusing on what you're justifying. Most people, whether they realize it or not, are focusing on what they're justifying, and they're not focusing on what they're creating. Oh, it's really hard because, oh, I'm not very good at that because my personality is. Oh yeah, but I'm not that kind of person. This is the stuff. This is what I would call justifying. Okay, this is what I would call justifying. People are doing this, so don't even realize it. Like if this is striking home for you, please know I'm not judging you. I was doing it all the time. I'm just trying to bring awareness to your life, because without awareness, you can't change anything. Can't change what you can't see. okay? You cannot change what you can't see. So I talk about awareness a lot in module 1 of my program. So without this awareness, you will just keep doing the same thing and wonder why it's so hard. There is something, I think, really beautiful about a human being seeing their capacity and potential around this kind of stuff, and realizing that even if they had a really ordinary, difficult, traumatic childhood, your capacity is not diminished by that. It's not, I promise you. Maybe you've just gone through a really nasty divorce. Your capacity is not diminished by that. Maybe you've just had a really difficult time. You've lost your job, or you find yourself in a situation in life where you maybe have made some poor choices in life, and we've all done that. Your capacity for this is not diminished by that. Nothing can take that from you. Nothing. Everybody needs to know this. Okay, well, we've hit the 40-minute mark. Wow, okay, that's enough. You guys don't need to hear me talking any longer than that. That's way more than enough anyway. I'm probably sure half the people won't even watch the end of this thing. I want to just thank you all for joining me on my live, and thank you for letting me know that you can hear me. Hey, Leanne. Hey, Shani, Deezer. Oh, hi, Joan, Bronwyn. Oh, hello. Thank you, everybody. Now, if you want to know more about my Relatable program, I will put a link. I will put a link in the comments below. You're more than welcome to book a chat and make a time to have a chat with me about it. You know, this is the time to make change. You're at the end of 2024. Do not let 2025, all right, be a reflection of this. If you're stuck and struggling and things are difficult, don't like, you know what I mean? I just want you to know you don't have to move into 2025 in the same way you're finishing 2024. You have more choice than you can ever possibly realize. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for your comments. I will see you all next week. If you have a question, send it to hello@fionalukeis.com.au or post it in the comments below. And if you want to have a chat with me about Relatable, I'll put the link in there. Okay, thanks, everyone. Take care. See you next time. Ciao. Hey, William, thank you. You're welcome.